Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor and his friends give you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides, and in this episode of Major League Baseball Picks, solving the prices that make for good bets using the mathematical model I've built, affectionately known as Sideline, for games scheduled to be played on Thursday, August 10th, 2023. In case you're new here, check out the webpage on the banner. It's www.pickswiththeprofessor.com/new for some explanations and community rules. Remember, if you're interested in projections and picks on every single game, sign up on Dub Club. That link's in the show description. You will get first five, money line, run line, totals, all sorts of information, and summarized if you just want kind of the, hey, here's the A grades you should play. You got a lot of options of how, you know, what you get and how much information you consume, more or less, kind of trying to build it up for all people. Discord access, where we have a lot of fun and a lot of good information over there as well. All that under $1 per day will be worth your while. Check it out. That link's in the show description. If you're looking for just the A+ play of the day, you can do that for a little bit cheaper over at Black Book Sports. Also, that link is in the show description. Remember that sports are unpredictable. So the discussion of this show projects a typical game, does not try to forecast it to a T, as that'd be a foolish and impossible goal. There are no right sides or wrong sides, rather prices where any side should be played. Whether using my model or someone else's, this sort of thinking is the key to growing your bankroll instead of draining it. There are ups and downs, but it will balance out in the long run. It's just hard to foresee before it happens. In other words, please understand the good and bad variance will occur. So the long run profitability has been proven. Winning every single day is an impossible reality for any gambler. Cousin Jared, I feel like, you know, we could just talk baseball like for 30 minutes here and just fly through the picks and move on. I feel like there's a lot to talk about. First off, you know, hey, anytime your team throws a no-hitter, I will don your jersey and hat for the next show. Unless you're one of the like 15 teams that I don't have a jersey and hat of, and in that case. But, you know, I got about half the teams covered, so here we go.
And if we don't have a hat or jersey, they're probably on the list to eventually get a hat or a jersey. There's a very small list of people that aren't on the list.
Yeah, there's like 5 teams. It's like it's just never going to happen. If you want, you can guess at that in the comments, or it'll lead to some fun Discord chatter as well. Because Jared, a quick little recap here, as much as we can do. Of Wednesday, the A+ play of the day continues to roll along. I believe that's 8-1 now in the 9 days of August. I mean, there's really nothing more to say than that about that. We had a lot of pushes today. We took Brewers -1 on the show. You opted for the money line, so kudos to you, Cousin Jared, for telling the people to play the money line. I had the official of the -1 to save on the odds. I pushed, you won. Again, kudos to you, but that was an official pick push. You had said last night you wanted to play the Braves. It got up to a C grade this morning, and so I posted in the comments of the show, and I put on Twitter, I said, hey, Cousin Joe will play the Braves. Braves -1. That pushed as they won by a single run. We had, you know, if you played the over in the Astros Orioles game, which we talked about playing the over, if you got the 9.5, you won, but that closed at 10. That would have pushed.
Red Sox pushed.
We had an A grade play on the Red Sox -1. That pushed thanks to a 9th inning home run, a little bit of a heartbreaker on that one. And then the only other outstanding thing here, we did lose the Orioles. I do want to come back and talk about that game. And then the Mariners are happening right now. They are tied here in the 6th inning. So kind of a mixed bag on Wednesday, but the A+ play of the day keeps rolling on. And the total of the day, 1 as well. That's 3-0 this week. Those are really profitable as well. You get those for free over on TikTok or Instagram. Those links in the show description as well. Cousin Jared, we are going to talk about the Orioles-Astros game for Wednesday. I just want to address, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on it. I watched that game along with I watched the Blue Jays-Guardians. I think I've seen every pitch of that series. Blue Jays won the series 4-2. 4 runs to 2 runs in 3 games. That is insane. I can't say I've ever seen that before in today's day and age.
And like if you told me that like the Guardians were involved in a series like that, like sure, I believe that. But that the Blue Jays
not against the Jays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely wild. But that Astros-Orioles game, there were so many chances for runs. It felt like both Flaherty and Javier worked out of jams early on. And as an Astros fan, we were happy with that result from a fandom standpoint, not happy with our wallets losing on the Orioles there. But I mean, I think I kind of stand by the read on that game. I mean, Javier didn't look great. His location wasn't great. he worked out of it, which again, good for him to only give up 2 runs in 5 innings, but well over 100 pitches in 5 innings, 2 runs. And I don't know, watching it, it seemed like it could have easily been 4, 5, 6 runs that he gave up. I'm just nervous for him going forward.
I mean, I was basically counting it as a win when it was the bottom of the first and the Orioles had a guy on third with nobody out and the Astros already scored 2 runs. I was like, oh yeah, this first 5 is going to go flying over 5.5. And then it didn't happen. But yeah, I completely agree. I don't feel like the read was necessarily wrong on that game. Just 2 guys that, got the outs at the exact time they needed them.
Yeah, Flaherty didn't pitch well either and limited the damage. Javier, kind of the same thing. And that's what we talk about. It's the gambling that's going to happen. That's what we talk about balancing in the long run. We don't focus. And that's why price matters. And I hate to, continue to, beat on the same drum, right? But that's why price is important. We know we're going to lose some. We know we're going to have some right reads and lose some. We're going to have some wrong reads and win some, and that's fun too. But we know that we're going to win some. We know that we're going to lose some. That's why price matters, because if you're getting good prices in the long run, we will be okay. And that's where, again, we always talk about the thresholds for prices. For totals, it's less about price. It's a little bit about the odds. It's also about the numbers, whether you're getting the push, that sort of thing, right? We play the over 8 in the Giants Angels. Probably not going to hit the over, but hey, it went up to 8.5. So it's one of those where it's like, hey, we got a good number. In the long run, that's going to work out for us. It just didn't work out for us here tonight, unless barring a miracle. I hope I'm wrong about this. I hope that everyone's watching this in the morning and saying, no, you got the over. But I'm not holding my breath with where we are now on that one. Kiss and Jared, I guess the last thing to talk about here before we get into today's show is I've been meaning to say this and make this joke, and I got to do it at the start of the show rather than at the end of the show. But I got to give props to Mrs. Professor making a joke. She knows at the end of every show I say that you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money. We've been joking about we're building a house and moving and things like that, and she made the joke that you can house your betting money, but you shouldn't bet your house money. And so we were talking about I got to practice what I preach there as well, and we got to it's fun times trying to think through finances of building a new house. But she had it. So we talked about making merch, right? I don't think that one's going to make it to a shirt. I think the other one will. But if you have clever shirt sayings, of course, drop those in the comments. We've been talking about a lot of them on Discord.
Yeah. Number one thing we're looking forward to is the mugs. We got to figure out the mugs.
If we keep recording at night, though, is it going to be like water in the coffee mugs? Like, what's that?
I'll find something to put in the coffee mugs. No guarantees as to what it is.
But say if we record in the morning, it's definitely going to be coffee, right? Otherwise,
definitely coffee. Yeah.
It could be anything. All right. Before we get to today's slate, some quick reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. And if you turn on notifications, you'll miss any of the MLB, college basketball, college football, or coming this fall NFL content that this channel provides. You can see how I scale picks, the Google sheet that's got the season results. Talk about it a little bit here today. Specifically one of the picks that's coming up. That link's in the show description. A lot of goodies over there. Just check that sheet out if you haven't yet. It's also on the website homepage as well, www.picksprofessor.com. But as always, with scaling, and with the picks, take what you like and leave the rest. 2 afternoon games here early for us here. 12:30 p.m. Eastern, Braves at the Pirates. Pirates playing the Braves really well. Because, Jerry, we were talking about this before show. Losing by 2, losing by 1, and winning a game in this series. Playing really tight. Pirates have been kind of frisky all year, better than we expected. Not obviously going to make the playoffs, but having a decent season, especially relative to expectations. Braves obviously just insanely good. Not really much to say about that. It'll be a beautiful day in Pittsburgh if you can get out to the ballpark. 72 degrees. Start 72 degrees to finish. It'll be like you are sitting in your living room on a nice day. Wind will be blowing out 5 to 10 miles an hour. That's going to boost the runs by a good little bit based off the weather, a little bit for the park being slightly hitter friendly, a little bit from the wind. 2 decent pitchers, Bryce Elder and Bailey Falter, and I feel like we could talk a lot about just these 2 pitchers. Bryce Elder's a guy who started off the season incredible, has been really going the wrong direction as of late. His underlying metrics always were a little bit worse than his ERA, which we kind of said was okay. He was getting a lot of ground balls. The issue is that his underlying metrics have gotten a lot worse in the last month. So this is a situation we always talk about this, right? How's the guy doing relative to his underlying metrics? Where's that going, et cetera? And his underlying metrics show that he should have a higher ERA, But it's not like now that's caught up to him. Now his underlying metrics are still high. I think they will always be higher because he's going to be a guy that gets a lot of ground balls and kind of escape jams a little bit with that. But it's going the wrong direction for him. Now, still based off of the body of work he did earlier, model still says he's slightly better than average. But you do have to be a little bit concerned if you're a Braves fan. Is it the innings, right? The first full season now for him in the big leagues. He pitched a little bit up there last year, but not quite throwing as many innings as this. How will he hold up, or is the book getting out of him? What's going on with him, and why is he kind of going the wrong direction? He was always kind of getting hit hard. Now it's gotten worse. So an interesting guy to talk about, I think, in Bryce Elder. Bailey Falter coming over in the trade from the Phillies. 4.87 ERA. Advanced metrics say it should be a little bit better. I'm a believer in this guy. He hasn't thrown that many innings this year, but I think he's got some potential. The model likes him, gives him a 100 grade. And there's not really a lot, if you just look at the ERA, that would suggest that. So there's stuff in the underlying metrics that suggests that he might actually be a little bit better, give you a little bit of value on him. Pirates bullpen, pretty decent. Offensively, slightly below average, because the Braves have an incredible offense. Model says the Braves win this 61% of the time. It's actually an A-grade pick on the Pirates money line, but I have, again, a rule about taking money lines, run lines, not -1. If the run line on the dog is plus odds, I take that rather than the plus odds on the money line. So it's a B grade on the run line on the Pirates at plus 115. The A grade threshold for the run line is actually plus 116. So it's like a B plus pick. It is literally 1 cent off. By the time I run this in the morning, it could be up to an A grade. So this is essentially an A grade on the Pirates. And again, if on the money line, it is an A grade, the current price is plus 188. A grade threshold is plus 183. Again, model says it should be plus 158. And again, the rule I have, I'm not saying that you have to follow this rule. It's just a simple rule of, so that I don't have to think through and try to figure out edges and whatever. I just kind of say, hey, if the run line is minus odds, I'll take a chance with the dog winning outright. But if the run line's plus odds, that means we still aren't even sure they're going to cover the run line. So let's just take the plus odds and not get too greedy here. That's my rule. Cousin Jared, I got a lot to talk about in this game. First main question for you here is, how do you feel about the Pirates on the run line versus the money line? You got some real appealing odds, or are you going to look at it like I do with the favorites and maybe say split your wager a little bit?
Yeah, I want to take the 1.5. It just feels like the safest play to me. I really like getting that 1.5, especially at plus odds. You don't get very many times where we get the back team getting a 1.5 at plus odds like that. Okay, so I'm glad that you mentioned we could talk about the pitchers, because I wanted to talk about Bryce Elder, and I'm a Bryce Elder fantasy owner. He is wonderful to own in fantasy because I don't have to care what his underlying metrics say. I just have to worry about his regular.
How many runs he can give up.
Yeah, exactly. And those are quite better than what the underlying metrics are. But for the purposes of this show, let's dig in to what he's doing a little bit. First thing I would say is his past 5 starts, he hasn't made it to 5 innings in 3 of those games and gave up 7 runs in 3 of those starts. And so it just hasn't been great as of late.
No.
His FIP,
I think that's putting it mildly. It hasn't been great.
Yeah, his FIP is an entire run higher than what his ERA is. His WHIP is 1.23. That's fine. He's giving up more hits per 9 than he did last season. He's giving up over 8 hits per 9. He's giving up 1 home run per 9, which is fairly decent. Like you said, a lot of ground balls. Yeah. He's walking 3 guys per 9, but he's not a big strikeout guy. He's only striking out about 6.5 guys.
And we talked about that yesterday. That's going to be a lot of what's driving into the underlying metrics, that strikeout. And you can make up for it if you get ground balls. It's just, that's the thing, is when it doesn't quite happen, the ground balls start going through the holes. That's where what's happened lately for him, and it just hasn't gone well. He's not getting those ground balls right to the second baseman for the double play ball when he lets a guy on like he was doing earlier in the season.
Yep. So about June, I had a real issue with how Sideline had Bryce Elder assessed. I was like, there's no way this guy is better than what he is. Yeah. But then, I realized, look at his underlying metrics. Oh, they're not that great. I backed off a little bit. And then we've got these, rough starts all in a row here. Yeah. And so, I want to take the 1.5 because Bryce Elder is he's solid, but I think he's a little bit overrated, and he benefits obviously from pitching for the Braves and getting lots of support and being able to win games where usually he would get no decision or a loss if you run a bad team. So sign me up. I want to take the 1.5, mostly because I think Bryce Elder is a little bit overpriced in the market.
I did not know that you rostered him in fantasy. I think that's kind of funny because I actually rostered him in fantasy earlier this season and traded him to the 3rd member of our team, Jake. So in exchange for Justin Verlander, which you would say cool, except for the fact that it's an NL only league. So
that didn't work.
Didn't work out well. Total in this game is sitting at 10. Model says 9.7. So the model says That's pretty spot on. It should be 9.5 or 10, one of those two. Where's your head on the total here? Model would, I guess, lean under 10.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to.
Can you play it under in the Braves? I mean, I don't know.
I was going to say, if I had to lean one way or the other, I'd probably lean over. But it's not a play that I'm making when Sideline says it's that spot on. And without like some sort of significant weather thing, which like you said, the weather's going to be great in Pittsburgh. So this is a stay away from me on the total. But I'd go over if I had to.
Yeah, I had the same thought. There's just no reason to touch this. Total 10's a pretty good price that they know that the wind's going to be blowing out a little bit. And again, you got to kind of inflate these Braves totals. They just kind of suck you into these high-scoring games because they're so good offensively. Pirates scored with them here on Wednesday night because you kind of have to keep scoring with them for the most part. They occasionally will go through slumps offensive. Every team will, but I mean, their offense is just so dang good. You have to inflate that total a little bit. I think they did a good job of that here. So Pirates the pick here, official pick on the run line. If you want to take a little chance, a little sprinkle on the money line. I'm sure Jake would say he would sprinkle on the money line, other than the fact that it's against his team, simply because of the fact that he likes a little bit more of the payout. But because Jared, you're sticking to the run line, my official pick run line. But again, B plus pick. By the time it reruns in the morning, it might be to that A grade threshold, but a good look there early on. Also in the afternoon spot, Astros and Orioles. Cousin Jared, we could spend half an hour just on this series alone as Astros fans. As an Astros fan, I was not expecting to win the first two games of the series at a Baltimore team that's playing really well, first place in the American League. And especially with Javier, the way he'd been pitching, Fromber, being kind of questionable after being the leader in the clubhouse for the Cy Young Award early on, and then not great as of late, other than the one start where he got to take advantage of the Guardians, who just can't hit lefties and half the time can't hit anybody. Surprising wins there for the Astros, in my opinion. They've looked really good. Now an afternoon game, and a game that I think is just going to be a complete toss-up, personally. Model says Astros win this 52% of the time. They should be favored by the price of -110. Right now it'd be a C-grade pick on the Astros. I wouldn't touch it. I have no idea what's going to happen here. Hunter Brown, the better pitcher between him and Kermer, better ERA, better underlying metrics. It really, hands down, better pitcher. Model has about 1 standard deviation better. Orioles bullpen, though, better, even though they've had some struggles here this series. They're still a much better bullpen. Astros offense, I guess, maybe better, but the game's in Baltimore. All that's just conflicting information of just crapshoot. And the model agrees with that, saying 52%. It's pretty close to 50-50. I have no idea what's going to happen. I don't know which pitcher's going to show up. I think it's a pretty high variability game. I think there's a real good chance. I think for sure one of these pitchers is going to show up and have a good outing. Could be both. If both happen, this is going to be a real low-scoring game. But I don't know which one it would be. We've seen some really good starts from Hunter Brown. We've seen some questionable ones. Kermer, the same thing. He's had some good starts. He's had some bad ones. You just never really know. The key on this game, wind will be blowing in at over 10 miles an hour from left field, knocking the ball down. That's a decrease in the expected number of runs by 7%. Otherwise, it'll be a nice day with regards to temperature. Some potential rain in the area. Different models are saying different things on when the rain hits. And so that's something to keep an eye on too. May have rain delay. So the rain could kind of throw a wrench into that situation. Again, with a total play, with a run line play, game doesn't go 9, you're going to get your money back no matter if you already won or lost. It doesn't really matter. So I think playing a day game, I do think they will be able to get 9. I just don't know when it'll happen, how it'll happen, et cetera. So some issues potentially with the rains, according to some models. Our pick on this was going to be under 9.5. Model says 8.7. Because Jared, tell us more.
So I feel like this is a perfect, afterthought to Bryce Elder, something to tack on to the Bryce Elder conversation. So Hunter Brown, I feel like he's been pretty solid. Sideline likes him, gives him a grade of 84. That's one that kind of catches my eye. That I kind of the opposite of a lot of the guys that we talked about. Is he strikes out a lot of people, and so he has a little bit of issue with command at times, but he makes up for that because he just strikes out and doesn't put many balls in play. So Hunter Brown, good pitcher. I see what you're saying about the weather potentially knocking off some runs in this game a little bit. But then I kind of want to go back to what we just talked about with Bryce Elder, and I want to look at Dean Kremer. And I would say when you look at the underlying stats, he's not that different from Bryce Elder. And if Bryce Elder were starting this game, I feel like everybody would be like, yeah, let's go under 9.5. And you're like, but it's Dean Kremer. He's just fine. He's nothing special. But again, his underlying stats are pretty much the exact same as as Bryce Elder. He walks less people. He strikes out more people. He does give up more home runs, not quite as ground ball friendly as Bryce Elder is. But in my book, basically the same pitcher as Bryce Elder. And so I feel like this is just one of those things where you're getting too caught up on the name if you're not playing under 9.5 here, because you could put in Bryce Elder here and you'll be like, yeah, play under 9.5. So anyway, basically, Dean Krimmer, Bryce Elder, same guy, play under 9.5 in this game.
A little bit of juice on the under 9.5. If you are playing at a book, if the number moves to 9, I'd still be playing under 9. I would just be making sure you look for good odds at the 9 because, you are giving up some value on the fact that if it lands at 9, that going from the win to the push, right? You're losing a little bit of value, so just make sure you get good odds if you're playing under 9. Cousin Jared, it would be a C grade pick on the Astros at -107. Is there a number that you would play the Astros that's near the current price of -107? An A grade would be +104. Or is there a price you'd play the Orioles? Or is this just a stay away because kind of like I'm saying, I have no idea what's going to happen in this game?
Yeah, to play the Astros, I think if it were even money, that's where I'd consider it. So if it gets around even money, then
if the Orioles take on enough money to move the line 7 cents, that's where you're thinking about. Okay. That'd be a solid right between A and a B grade threshold pick. So a solid B at that point. I kind of agree at plus money, just because at plus money there, I don't know what's going to happen if the model says the Astros are supposed to be favored. I don't know what's going to happen. That's reasonable. Right now you can get -103 in the Orioles. If the Astros are supposed to be slightly favored, I definitely would need much more than +103 to back them. Not saying the Orioles can't win. I don't know. Like I said, we got to be thinking about price, especially with a sport like baseball. I always preach that. So you probably already know that. Dear viewer. A bunch of other afternoon games. Again, if you're looking for other picks on other games, Dub Club has you covered. That link's in the show description. But otherwise, we'll fast forward here till 7:10 p.m. Eastern with the Royals at the Red Sox. And Cousin Jared, this is not the biggest favorite on the board, but this one did almost break my model, as did the other big one. So my goodness. Where do you even start with this one? James Paxton, Alec Marsh are the two pitchers in this game. Paxton, 3.60 ERA. Advanced metrics line up pretty well with that. Done really well, and I'm happy for the guy with all the injuries he's had from to come back here finally. It feels like he was good with Seattle like 6 years ago. I don't know if it was exactly 6, but it feels like so long ago.
Feels like a decade now.
Feels like a decade now, right? How many years happened in COVID times, right? I mean, that's the other thing. But I mean, really happy for the guy having a good year, good pitcher. Alec Marsh for the Royals, a young guy who's been called up, because they've traded everybody away and they're just looking for, young guys to get there. 6.75 ERA. Advanced metrics say it should be more in the mid-5s, but I mean, that's still really bad for the advanced metrics to say mid-5s. Massive starting pitcher mismatch. Pretty big mismatch on the bullpens. Pretty big mismatch on the offenses. You're dealing with a Red Sox team that needs to win. So it's not like they're going to coast. You and I were talking before show. There's just not a lot of data on some of these big favorites. It's kind of hard to figure it out because sometimes historically in these games that are big favorites, you only see these big favorite games after the All-Star break when a team's traded away any talent that they've got. And sometimes the young guys are playing hard and sometimes they're not, or they're not quite as maybe motivated or whatever. And sometimes it's a veteran team or an older team or a good team who needs to win and they're playing hard. And sometimes they've got everything wrapped up and they're playing. I remember the Dodgers, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, one of those years where they, I guess it was the year before. I think the year before was a tight race. It might have been last year where they had it wrapped up. In the last 2 weeks, it was like you had no idea who was going to be in that starting lineup because they were giving everybody rest all over the place, right? So you just never really know what's going to happen sometimes in these bigger favored games. So it's a little bit harder to use the data historically. But here's what I will say on this one. According to Sideline, the Red Sox win this game 85% of the time. That is insanely high for a baseball game. Is that a little bit too high? I mean, it's very possible that that's a little bit too high. I wouldn't be surprised. Again, the data is very questionable here. So I'm not going to take 85% as gospel. And I've long said the probability predictions, they are not accurate to 1 percentage point. There's no model in the world that is that accurate, that can be that accurate for sports. The general rule of thumb is it's generally about 3%. When you get to this part of the distribution, it's probably more like 5 or 6%, right? So model says 85%, but the confidence interval would be more like it might even be as low as 80, and that's not crazy. Bottom line, though, Red Sox should be really big favorites in this game, and they aren't that big of favorites. I'm a little surprised they aren't bigger favorites in this. Right now, they're at minus 240. The run line price is minus 130. Both of those are easy A-grade picks. However you want to play the Red Sox makes sense. I'll do it at the minus one again. It's implied at minus 192. If you want to play a little more aggressive on the run line, I think it's fine. I think the Red Sox are a smart pick here. We don't always take favorites, as you can see in that Braves-Pirates game that we talked about earlier in the day. But this favorite, I think, is worth it. So, Cousin Jared, Red Sox, are you splitting your wager? Are you just doing run line? It's a massive edge, one of the biggest edges we've seen all season. So I'm curious to know how you're attacking it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like anybody who's listened to the show for a while knows that I have a propensity to stick for the money line and not necessarily take the run line in situations like
yesterday with the Brewers, right?
Yeah, exactly. But people, this is why the
or
run
today
line,
with the Brewers or whatever.
But this is why the run line was invented for times like this. And so I'm going to say, forget laying the one run. I'm going to lay the 1.5. And I've seen that minus 130, even minus 125 in some places. And so I'm fine with laying the 1.5 in this situation, mostly because this game is being played at Fenway and the runs sideline projects almost 11 runs in this game. So who knows? Maybe there's another game on the slate for the same day where the total is much lower, but the team is favored just as largely, where I wouldn't feel comfortable laying a 1.5 because maybe sideline says there's going to be like 4 less runs in that game. So anyway,
that's an interesting hypothetical that you just made up there. It's very contrived. I don't quite know where you would come up with that.
Yes, if people over on Dub Club can figure it out. But yeah, again, this is why the run line was created. So it makes me a little uncomfortable, but I feel like mathematically for me, it's the right thing to do if I could just like lay minus 125 and lay the 1.5 as opposed to, spreading my wagers around or taking the money line at some ridiculously high number.
I definitely agree with what you're saying there. I have to iterate to the viewer, right, that this is not a lock. There are no locks in gambling.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think this is too easy, right? There's no such thing as this is going to be an easy win because the Red Sox were at 2 the ninth here on Wednesday, give up a home run 1-1, right? So I think this is – I want to make sure I convey two things that we can hold both in the same time. We are complex beings, right? We don't have to think of everything as black and white. Mm-hmm. I think that this is an incredibly good price to play the run line at minus 125 or minus 130. And A-grade price, according to the model, is minus 207. Why is it the high? Because exactly what you said, when there's more expected runs, a hitter-friendly ballpark in Boston, and a park in Boston, like we've talked about, can have some really crooked numbers and some really high-scoring games, and then some really lower-scoring games. The runs just come in weird bunches there. You never know what you're going to get. But on average, more runs at that park means a higher likelihood of winning by multiple runs. I think it's an incredibly good price and one that you should take advantage of. Also, at the same hand, we have to consider this is not a lock. The Royals are still professional athletes. They lost by 1 yesterday here. So don't put all your money on this. But I also think it's a good price, right? And both things are true. I hope that people can hear that. That is a nuanced statement. This is a strong confidence pick. But our strong confidence picks, we still only put 3, 4, whatever percent-ish of our bankroll on a given day. Exactly however you want to do that, right? That's your personal preference. But we don't put 25% of our bankroll on the pick that we love. We just stick to 3, 4, 5%, whatever it may be. Strong pick, but again, you never know with sports.
You're viewing it as a lock. I'm viewing it as these kind of things go sideways all the time. And so I'm reducing my risk by laying the 1.5. So I would almost look at it the exact opposite way.
There you go. Well, I'm not viewing it as a lock as much as I just want to make sure that someone doesn't get the wrong impression of this. I do think the Red Sox are extremely likely to win. Things do go sideways, and we've talked about that, right? That sometimes the 1.5 is kind of a kind of can be a good thing because either you're going to win more money when they win by more than one, and you're going to lose less money when they don't win, right? So you're absolutely right about that. So anyway, just kind of there's a lot happening here with that run line. I want to make sure we're kind of all on the same page. No one's being misled. I'm all about transparency, honesty, thinking about things, right? Education, et cetera, all those things. So hopefully I've conveyed that well. Total in this game, 10.5. Model says 10.8. 11 is an odd number, so 5 to 5 gets to push at 11. I'm not sure I'm concerned about odd numbers as much in a game like this. I'm more concerned about odd numbers in a game that we think is more likely to be a tied game because we get to extra innings. one team scores 1 run, the other team doesn't, right? That sort of thing. This is not as likely to be if you're looking to go over 10.5, specifically because 11's an odd number, you're thinking 5-5, we've got the win. It's like, I'm not saying it can't be 5-5. It's just the probability that this game specifically lands 5-5 in a park like that, in a situation like that, probably not as much. So I'm not sure that matters as much. Model would lean over. It's not a huge edge, though, so I assume that you would not be stoked about playing in over 10.5, because of Jared.
I concur. I would not be happy.
Okay. All right.
I'm going on a limb, laying a 1.5. So that's going to be my only play on this game.
Very, very fair. No pitcher prop of the day today. There's only a couple games that have those out right now. Obviously, reduced slate on Thursday. The games that have them out, not games you're talking about. Nothing that I really love as of now. So no pitcher prop of the day. We did lose the prop here on Wednesday, so falling to 2-1 on the week, I believe. 1-2 on the week. I don't know. On the pitcher props here this week. We'll hopefully be back with one on Friday. So, because Jared, that'll do it for us. Do you have any parting words for people's Thursday baseball all day long?
Baseball's fun.
Baseball's fun. There you go. All right. Well, thanks for tuning into this episode of Picks with the Professor. Don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy the sports betting content provided on this channel shoved right into your feed. We'll be back again tomorrow with more baseball content. But until then, as always, best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.